Let's have a crafternoon. Hey, my name's Ellie. I'm a potter that lives in Los Angeles, and this whole series is going to be about how you can make pottery at home with just a bag of clay and tools that you find around the house, so that you don't have to buy a bunch of tools if you're just starting out, and ways that you can be really creative and cost effective and make really beautiful pieces for your home. Let's get started. Today we are going to be making one of the first things that I ever made. Every afternoon I would sit in the backyard and have my little crafternoon session, and I would make these bowls. So they're just pinch pot bowls. This is a very classic hand building technique, and I called them nipple bowls because, you know, to get started you want to get out your clay. So usually I would use something like a wire tool, but this is all about how to not use tools at home, and this is a great way to use something that most people have in the house in a very different way. So you're just going to take a piece of floss, take it like that, snip it off, and you're going to slice off a bit of clay. So I've got myself some clay like this. I can take a little bit more if I want. If you want to have a go at wedging, you can wedge. You're just going to push the clay on the table like this. This is called ram's head wedging, and it's basically just making the clay become one, get out any little air bubbles. Also, you can just smack the clay in your hand like this, but we are aiming for some kind of like ball shape to start. We just want it to be relatively even because it's going to make it easier for us as we start working. Now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pinching the walls of this circle, and I'm going to be sticking my finger in and then pinching the walls up to make the bowl shape. I'm just going to make a little bit like this. So I want to leave about 1 inch down the bottom. I don't want to go through my piece, so you can hold your hand here, and then when you kind of feel like it's starting to go up, can you see that? That's when you want to stop. So it's better to leave a little bit of extra at the bottom if you're feeling nervous about it if it's your first time. See, that's pretty much in the center of my piece. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my fingers in there like that. I'm gonna create this little, the claw shape grip, and I'm gonna be pinching the walls. So I'm gonna go around one time, and then I'm gonna make my way up. So basically, I'm pinching the clay up the walls. So I go around one time, and then I move up the wall. And then I'm gonna go up again. And I'm gonna have to do this a few times. So you can see that I'm rotating as I go. My clay is starting to get thin up the top. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tap it on the table so that I get a little flat bottom. And you can see the inside, I've got it nice and pinched out. I'm going to be pulling the walls up with a few fingers now. So I'm gonna put a hand on the outside to support, and I'm gonna drag my other fingers up like this. So I'm dragging up my fingers up the wall. Now, the reason that I put my hands on the outside of the piece is so that I don't poke a hole through the wall. This clay is quite soft, so I don't want to be poking a hole in my wall. Dragging up like that. You're gonna start to get some tearing around the rim, and that's really normal. So Don't worry about that. We're gonna deal with that in a second. Now I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna keep dragging it up. You can use whichever finger you'd like, but it's really important that you keep one hand on the outside. And you'll probably start to notice that the thickness of the wool, you can really feel it in, you know, you can feel where bits are thinner, where bits are thicker. You're gonna start becoming more familiar with the clay that you're using. So speaking of clay that I'm using, this is called Rodsbod. It is an aardvark clay and it is a cone 10 clay. So if that means nothing to you, don't worry at all, but it just means that that cone 10, it means the temperature that it fires to. So you can fire it to a lower temperature, but it might not end up vitrified. So it's another word that you can add to your vocabulary. Vitrified. So it's a fun word. I am left with something that looks like this. You could leave this as it is. You've got a bowl, you've got a mug potentially, but we're gonna go further, of course. Now, with this piece, if you were gonna make it a mug, I would recommend taking off a little bit of extra clay because it's quite heavy and you don't want to drink out of a heavy mug because you add liquid into a mug and it's extra heavy. But this would be a really cute, maybe like a guacamole dish, a little dip bowl for dips or snacks. Or maybe tea, and you could, tea bowl, you could drink it like that. Now that I have kind of like a nice place to start, what I can do is I can go around and I can pinch it a little bit more. And this side has ended up a little bit thinner than the other one. And that, you know what, that's a-okay because it can't always be even on both sides, you know? And now I'm gonna get my skewer. I'm gonna find the lowest point and then I'm gonna cut. So this is in place, the skewer is in place of a needle tool. So if I was to use a proper pottery tool, I would use a needle tool. So I've taken that off and we're gonna save this for later. Okay, now I have my bowl and it's more even at the top. I'm gonna turn it upside down. Then from here, I'm gonna get my card and I'm gonna start to scrape away some clay. So it's kind of hard to take off extra clay at the bottom of your piece when you're pinching because you can't, like, there's only so much your hand can pinch. So this is a nice way to just take off extra clay, get it a bit more even. I can tell that that's pretty thin, so I'm not gonna take any there. If I was to use a real pottery tool, a proper pottery tool, a great way to do this at home or in a studio would be with a metal kidney or a metal kidney. A metal kidney. I'm trying to think of what the other one is called. A rubber kidney. It's called a rubber kidney. My favorite one to use is mud tools. But you know what? This isn't about tools. This is about the opposite of tools. This is an anti-tools class. I'm going against tools in this one. Don't buy tools when you've already got tools at home. I'm gonna take a little bit more off here. So you can see my insides are looking something like this. Now from here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to stretch my piece outwards. So this is how you get that fanned out bowl shape. So it's a similar idea to what we had before when we were swiping up. We're gonna swipe out. So this is gonna stretch out the top of the piece so that we have an opening bowl shape, okay? So we're gonna stretch it out with a finger. Make sure you have it behind. I've already said that. And I have a really thin spot over here, so I have to be really careful. Whoops. You can use your thumb when I use one hand, I'm kind of holding and swiping. It's like this is the motion. The thing about pottery that I really love, there's no rules how you make something. There's so many different techniques, and you know, so many people develop their own over time. And yeah, I think it's just really special that there's so many ways of doing one thing, you know? There's no one way of doing anything. So you might try to make this bowl and then you'll be like, Ellie, but I like to do it like this. And you know what I'm gonna say? I'm gonna say, good for you. I'm really happy for you. I'm left with this little situation, okay? So this is a cute little bowl situation. I'm gonna tidy up the top again because I'm gonna be flipping this over, and I don't want it to warp my walls, and then I'm gonna make it a little bit less even again. So you probably noticed it's a lot of back and forth. Now, if your card starts to get a bit funky, you can clean it. So if you actually dip it in a bit of water, it's gonna glide through nicely. When you're slicing off the top, you wanna make sure that you've got your fingers pinching and pulling with the other hand so it doesn't tear the rim off. I have my rim nice and fairly even. Now I'm gonna flip my piece upside down, okay? She's going upside down. And I have all this cruddy clay that I have been saving. Okay. And I'm gonna be using this to create my foot. So this is a foot. This is what elevates the piece off the ground. You don't have to make one. If you're like, I love this bowl, stop. By all means. That can be it. But if you want to make this bad boy, you can take this extra clay and you're just gonna like smush wedge. I mean, if you know how to wedge, by all means, wedge. To make a coil, which is what we're doing, we're making a coil. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. We're gonna make a coil. This is how I start, okay? I make a sausage, like a little kind of chipolata situation, and then I smooth out any cracks like this. So I wanna smooth over these. And then I'm just gonna get it in my hand and I'm gonna roll. Now the reason that I like to roll with it like this in my hands first is because if you start rolling a coil on your board and you're new, you don't necessarily know how to roll a coil, odds on it's gonna end up as like more of an oval shape than a circle shape. So I would recommend starting like this first to get a nice even circle, and then let's clean up the board a little bit. You don't want to get all cruddy clay bits in it. Then you can roll it on the table if you want. And I'm rolling it really lightly like this, and I'm rolling from fingertip to palm, okay? Fingertip to palm. So up and out like that. Yee. So I've got my coil sausage, and before I attach it, I'm just gonna add a little bit of water because this clay has been used already, and when I bend it, see all these cracks? It's not what I want. I don't want it to do that on me because it's gonna crack more as it dries, and then it's gonna be cracked. It's not what you want. Okay, so put it on the table, get yourself some water, dip your sponge in. Finally, the sponge is getting some action, and squeeze it out. You don't want to soak this, you just want to hydrate it. And then we're just gonna rub our coil. Okay, rub some of those. Oh, there's a hair. If you're feeling crazy, you can pull the coil a little bit. So you can dip it in some water and then you can pull it like this. So this is how you make handles for mugs. This is how you can make handles. And Don't even start joking about what this looks like. I know what this looks like. Okay? Ooh. I'm gonna make sure that I have enough coil. Oh, it did crack a bit, all right. That I've got a big enough coil that when I wrap it around, I'm not gonna be left with, you know, I'm gonna have to redo the coil. So I'm gonna cut it here. I should have cut it. Anyway, I'm gonna cut it there. I'm gonna roll it a little bit more. You can see my hands are starting to get a bit sticky now. And then I'm going to, I still need more. I need more. Here we go. And you can see, ooh, you've got that. So my bowl itself is still a bit floppy. Now, if you're making a few things at a time, what you can do is make your pinch pop bowl first, put it aside, let it dry and firm up a little bit, and then you can add the coil. It's kind of better to work with it when it's firm, but you know what? You don't have to. Now that I have this on here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach these two ends together. Now, when you're attaching clay together, it is really important that you attach it properly, or it could just fall off, it could crack, and that's it. That's what can happen. You're gonna get your skewer, get the pointy end, and we're gonna do something called cross hatching. It's called scoring, but it looks like cross hatching. So I'm gonna cross hatch, score each side, and they're quite deep scores. I'm not being cute and going like, I'm getting in there. And then I'm gonna get some water, I'm gonna dab it on there, and I'm gonna push this together, okay? And I'm gonna make myself a little donut. So it's a little clay donut. Isn't that cute? Who would eat this? Comment below if you'd eat this. Would you eat this? Would you? Please don't. Don't eat this. It's actually really not good for you. Don't eat it. It's food safe once it's fired, but don't eat this. Okay, so now I have my attachment, and I'm gonna look at this donut that I have, and I'm gonna decide which side I like the best. I like this side the best. And now I'm gonna flip it over, and I'm gonna use this side, and I'm gonna score. Wait, do I like this side the best? I actually like this side the best. So I'm gonna score the opposite side to my favorite side. Now, the reason that I'm doing that is because the side that I score is gonna be the side that I attach to my bowl. So cross-hatching like this. You can make sound effects if you want, but you don't have to. And then you can be crazy and dip it in your water, or you can get your sponge. You can get your sponge and do it. And then I like to do a little press to see where it's gonna go. Okay, I'm gonna go around and I'm gonna score where it's going to attach to. If you were working with clay that's a little bit harder, you'd want to make something called slip, and that is basically a clay glue that you make with the clay that you're using. You just mix it with a bit of water, and you get like a paste, and then that's called slip. That's it. I'm just gonna tap it on there, tappy, tappy, tappy. I'm worried it's a little bit wet around here. So I'm gonna, maybe I'm gonna take a bit of this water out, actually. All right. No, I don't want to. I changed my mind. Now I want to drag this part of the foot. I want to drag that down and blend it into this part. So you can use your it's not chopstick. I am going to actually break this off. Crazy. And then I'm going to use this to press the clay. So I'm going to compress this clay down and blend it out. Now, I don't really want to move this piece that much yet. So I'm gonna rotate my board. Rotate my board. And then you can use this flat end of the skewer and kind of press in a little bit of your inside. Just be like, don't poke a hole through it. You can use your finger a little bit and you can squeeze. You can squeeze this up. So this is elongating the foot. You can kind of shape it a little bit too, so you can see how I'm like pushing out and I'm also pushing in. So it's a lot of counterbalancing when you're hand building. She's looking perky. I'm gonna keep pushing this up a little bit. I want this to be kind of even. Now I'm gonna go in one more time with this guy and I'm just gonna smooth out and compress any final bits. Now, if you're working outside, depending on the humidity, you're gonna have a different experience with your clay. So if I'm in Los Angeles, it's quite dry, so my piece will dry quickly. If you're working in New York, you probably don't have a backyard, but or your balcony, it's humid over there. So in the summer for sure, but just keep that in mind that that's gonna impact drying times. Now, I like to make this nipple bowl with some clay that is quite sandy and has really nice plasticity. I find that really easy to work with. So in Australia, I was using a brand called Keen's, and I was using, I can't remember what it's called. I'm gonna link it below, but that was my favorite clay it's called Toast. It's called Toast. It was my favorite clay to make these bowls with because it was really stretchy. Another clay in Australia that I loved was called Special K, and it was a white clay. It's very sandy, and I would glaze with just like a clear, and then I'd leave the exterior raw. So I'm actually just going around, I'm using the edge of the card to just carve so I get a nice distinguished foot. You don't have to do this, by the way. You could also make another coil and wrap it around and then tidy up your edge a little bit. I'm just gonna tidy it up a little bit just because I know it's not super even. And this will mean that I have less warping in that foot. Warping means that it kind of like bends. So now I'm gonna flip it around. I'm gonna flip. Whoa! Woohoo! Okay, so now I can tidy up the inside a little bit. So I can drag this out a little bit and tidy up the outside. So I'm dragging this out a little bit. So I think these are really nice as a nesting bowl set, you know, to have two of them. I don't know what this is. Maybe someone can tell me in the comments, maybe if they're like a psychiatrist or they study psychology, or they spend a lot of time on TikTok and they're on the psychology algorithm. I always want to make even numbers of things. I don't know why. So I always want to make like 2 or 4 or 6. I always want to make a set of something. Unless it's a vase. Vases, not so much. But if it's functional, I always want 1 or 2 because I'm always thinking about sharing things with people. No, I do. One of my pet peeves is when people come over and we're having coffee together and we have a different cup. I'm going around, I'm tidying up the rim here. I'm just going around with my finger and I'm smoothing it out. And you can also get the sponge. Please don't do this with a wet sponge. Okay, we're really wringing it out. You gotta go, and go around and smooth. And if you're doing the inside of the bowl, make sure that you have your hand on the outside, because you're still gonna stretch it out if you don't have your hand there. And it's still a little bit wet. I don't want to ruin this nice rim that I've created, but when it is drier and a bit firmer, then you can flip it upside down and tidy up the bottom. You can write your name on the bottom of the thing here with the skewer. Just like I said, don't poke a hole in there. So I think a really fun thing to do at the beginning of your pottery career is to write the date or like the year. You might keep this piece and then look back on it in 20 years and go, oh, this sucks. Just kidding. But your style's gonna evolve. This was very early days for me, was making this bowl. And you can see the difference just from this one and this bowl here. This is a bit firmer. See how I'm going like that and it's not moving? It's officially leather hard. The color has changed a little bit. It's even shrunk a little bit, which is crazy. Whereas this one, it's still floppy, it's still moving. And now I have a really cool. Okay, thank you for watching my first hand building video. This is part of a series, so if you liked watching this, you know what to do, okay? Hit the buttons that you're supposed to hit so that I know that people are enjoying it. Comment below if there's something that you want me to make. Bye.